I went into all of this thinking like, oh, it would be nice to ship one skirt a month. Never in a million years dreamed that this would become like the legitimate business that it became.
Samantha Hamilton combined her interests in running, fashion, and Disney to create this line of Disney-inspired running skirts that went from side hustle to full-time business.
I had my first six-figure quarter in sales.
In this video, she's breaking down how she made the products without having to do it herself, how she got her first sales, built a loyal following, and how she eventually sold the business for $120,000.
Run Disney finally did reopen the race seasons, and they came back in 2021 with their sort of big return to in-person races. I had my first six-figure quarter in sales, and so that was a very, very big moment and a very like legitimizing moment. And then, and then when I personally got to go back to my first post-COVID Run Disney event and see the customers and see Team Buttbo, as we became known, in person, and get that like outpouring of support and get to thank them in person. It was really, really a lovely full circle moment for me.
Yeah, to post a six-figure quarter, not just a year, but from what started as a little hobby side project. We'll see if anybody's interested in these things. We'll put it out there. So the business started a few years prior to that. And what was the inspiration to make these?
So rewind back to 2015, and I had started getting into distance running. I was living in LA, working in LA. I had a sort of big girl corporate fashion executive job. And in the back of my mind, of course, I'm thinking like, what's next? And I always knew that I wanted to own my own business eventually. But I wasn't at a point in my life where I was able or willing to sink the big bucks into that sort of venture. And I had started going to these races. My mom is much more creative than I and much more talented than I and can sew. And she and I had designed these tutus for me to wear together. And she had handcrafted them with love. And behind me, something that became like a thing that I just like loved was these big bows on the backside. And so I wore the first couple down to the next couple of races, and I got such a fantastic response as people literally stopping me as I'm running, asking where I got it and everything. And of course, at the time I said, oh, my mum made it for me. But it kind of got the gears churning, and it was saying, this might be something that could be nice and small for me to just kind of get my feet wet as far as what it takes to launch a business, and sort of the rest is history from there.
Yeah, just combining what you've got. Okay, I'm starting to get interested in distance running. I am working in fashion. I'm in LA. I'm going to these races. People are asking me, wait, where'd you get that thing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, the bells start to go off. Like, well, maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
So what happens after that?
A hurdle for me was going to be production. In my sort of big girl job, my full-time job, I had worked a lot with overseas production. And I was, constantly aware of the pitfalls that come with that. And of course, I wasn't jumping in with 2 feet trying to do thousands of units of volume, which would require sort of that overseas production. So I thought, you know what, like let's look closer to home. And my dad, until he retired, he was
Your mom didn't want to be on the assembly line doing everything.
I know, right? No, she'd say she obviously did the first few samples, but no, I couldn't full-time recruit her. But my dad was he was an administrator at the University of Alabama, and there was a lot of factories that actually closed down in that region, which left a lot of out of work, specifically for my purposes, seamstresses.
Okay.
And the craftsmanship and the talent was amazing from the second that they made the first sample from their end. And this is from very frugal sketches. I am by no means a pattern maker myself. And it became something that was like an added bonus for me that wasn't originally in my mission statement to be, a small business working with other independent people who were looking out to try and build their own businesses. And the original seamstress who I was connected with, she stayed working with me until the very day that I sold. But if you're close to a university, in particular, they have fantastic programs, and they will talk you through very niche things that you're trying to accomplish and trying to get made, and they will help you make the connections. So hopefully that's a good resource to guide people to.
So this is on the production side instead of going to some overseas factory or even production in LA. It's like I got to think a little bit outside of the box. I got to think a little bit smaller, leaner, and I could find independent seamstresses halfway across the country who might be
Yeah.
willing to take on some extra work. They're already really good at this stuff. And then from your end, it's like I just got to supply the material and the
Yep.
designs.
Yep, and there was no sort of pressure of meeting minimums and putting in huge volume orders. I could invest into it exactly what I could,
Now, did you have
and
it
see.
structured where um, we're going to do almost like digital mock-ups? Here's what it's going to look like. And then as soon as we get an order, we'll send it to the seamstress. Or did you have to have an initial stock?
So we did do initial stock, but it was all very grassroots, the first round of production. And Miss Lily was my very first seamstress, and she literally made the first pattern from just measuring it out on a piece of paper from my sketches and from my mum's prototypes of. So she sort of deconstructed it and said, okay, we'll need this, we'll need that, and like
Yeah.
she literally created a pattern essentially out of nowhere. And then of
Okay.
course over time we were able to build on that and get a bit more digitized so that we could have it more uniform. But that's where it started.
Was anybody else doing this? Like there had to be other similar competitors. Like no, or is it like this was
Well,
truly
now
novel?
now there is. Now there
Okay.
so I had a couple of things that in hindsight were very much going for me. One was my location to Disneyland, and that I was right there for sort of like the emergence of the sort of like Run Disney fandom, and it becoming like a big following behind that.
Yeah, and it's
And
important, like, people aren't doing these races trying to set a personal best time, like, it's a fun
It's a
atmosphere, my
lot.
wife and her friend
Yeah.
has done it, it's like everybody's kind of happy and people are in costumes, it's like nobody's,
Yeah.
setting any Olympic records here.
No, and there's families, and the emphasis is get out there and have a good time. And like people are stopping for photos, and of course, you've grown into something where now like people who are there for like sort of like a once in a lifetime experience as part of like their Disney like portfolio, if you will.
Yeah,
It's a party environment, and it's just a really positive thing. So, but say I was lucky enough to be sort of on the very first wave of the very
okay.
first cusp of it really becoming like a costumed, photographed, social media element sort of
Got
thing.
it, okay. And Disney wasn't selling anything like this themselves?
Well, I would come to find out that they weren't at the time, nothing specific. They do have expos that go hand in hand with these Run Disney events. And of course, like I had applied to sell at a few of the expos, and they very politely
Nice.
declined my application because they said it was too similar to products that they sell in the parks.
And did you ever run into the letter from the lawyer team saying, "Hey, this is a little bit close to our IP."
I'm very lucky to count a number of very talented lawyers in my close circle of friends, and all of them collectively said like that inspired by those words can protect you from a lot, because you're not claiming credit for direct imagery, you're not claiming credit for a character, you're not claiming that it is
Okay.
is
Okay.
exactly their product. You're saying, like, I have taken that idea and built my own interpretation of it.
And that's considered fair use because it's not a full Belle gown. It's a Belle running skirt, inspired by Belle running skirt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exact. And I was always just very cognizant of not using direct imagery or anything like that in any of my marketing, of course, and just being a bit sensible about it.
Got it. Okay. So that's helpful. There's some precedence for it. It's like fan fiction in a way. Other people
Yeah,
selling Disney inspired merch for years and years. And so, but tread
exactly.
carefully with the language that you're using, how you're promoting it. So, what's the first step in trying to put up a storefront, or going to the next event and trying to sell out of the trunk of the car? What happens next?
So my first platform that I used was Etsy, and because it did have the hand sewn element and everything, I thought that would be a good match
Oh yeah,
initially. And then hand in hand with that, I set up my social media. Instagram was relatively new, and then of course I set up the Facebook page. And just started kind of organically plugging away, trying to get the word out. And then the of course, like, I registered myself for the upcoming West Coast Disneyland races and made sure I was armed with business cards, flyers for hopefully the people stopping me once again, and this time I would have resources and a place to point them
yeah, sure.
to to get their own skirts. So and that certainly seems to have brought those first few customers in.
Okay, very grassroots versus,
Very,
fully
yeah.
fully online. Like, you just put up the Etsy shop. Was anybody buying until started handing out cards? Did people find it organically?
It Yes, they did. They did for a, a someone who's starting out, very, very small like this. I really still to this day will sing Etsy's praises as giving a home to, like, sort of like the more sort of like handmade driven products, because it is a platform as big as it is and as vast as it is. Traffic gets driven to you, and traffic is always active. And I went into all of this thinking like, oh, it would be nice to, ship one skirt a month. I would consider that like a success for the next few months, just trying to build it. And they found me, and right off the bat I was shipping, at least one a week, I would say. So it was very nice to be able to get that sort of jump start with them.
That's great. Yeah, if I could do one a month, that would be great. I'm 4xing my goal right away. So positive traction. Were you doing anything
Yeah.
to encourage those first customers to share this on social media, like to try and get the momentum spinning? So instead of shipping one a week, we could do 3, 4, 5 a week, something like that.
Oh, yes. This was the days of the giveaway being a hot thing on Instagram or Facebook. So we would every couple of months or so offer one of the like and follow us and share it with a friend, and you'll get an entry into this drawing for the giveaways. I feel like there was consistent growth on social media, through just like word of mouth and through these little giveaways that then I was seeing a direct translation into sales. And the beauty of having such a small business is that you can stay in touch directly with the customer. And I think when they can tell that you're just starting out and they're excited to be aware that they're one of your first customers, you get that back and forth, and you do get to sort of like find out where they heard about your product or where they saw you, and that is something to lean into and learn from, and see where you can sort of focus your efforts to get more of that growth.
How much were you charging for these, the initial orders?
Pretty much all of them were $69, and then a small shipping fee, which I did keep at a flat fee. And that covered everything. It didn't leave much wiggle room, but again, like I was still working full time. I was still very much in a place of like, this is just the stepping stone business. This is not the business that is going to become a full-time job for me. In hindsight, I think that I would have swallowed some of the imposter syndrome there, and made sure I was priced still competitively, but making sure that I was able to comfortably take care of everything and, truly draw a profit right off the bat.
Yeah, looking at the site today, they're almost double that, between 100 and
Oh, yeah.
130 usually. So
Yeah.
imagine the pricing increased over time. Sure, production
And there's a
costs
lot of
or material costs
there's
increased over time too.
a lot of factors at play there in the price increases. Number one is obviously the cost of materials and fabrics has gone up exponentially, and from there there's lots of hidden costs and like overheads and everything that you do have to take care of. So it's still priced like uh, say very competitively and like I think very fairly when you actually like sort of dig into it, but it also does like obviously it draws a profit now, which is nice.
How did you think about the margins in terms of the materials and the production and the shipping and any marketing costs? So, like, was there a target? Oh, every one that we sell is $15 or $20. Like, was there a percentage or something, anything like that?
Um, no, so when I first started, it was very much cover my expenses and keep it as low as possible. And say just to be perfectly honest, to just get any customers at all and to make it like an appealing price point that, you could tell right off the bat it was a fair price for the product you were
Yeah.
getting. And so I knew I like it was an absolute necessity for me to stay under $100. And then from there, I just kept like sort of trimming away and trimming away and trimming away until I absolutely couldn't anymore. And then it was a couple of years before we, you know, truly sat down and reevaluated the pricing and said, hey, you do need to increase by just a couple of dollars here and there just to make sure everything's taken care of.
Hmm. Were the seamstresses charging you per unit that they made, or say we're going to do a batch of 50 and it's going to be a flat fee? Like, how did that part work?
Yep. They've always been per unit, and I've always worked with them to make sure that they're taken care of. That's a large part of the cost of production in general. But as I said, like it became a priority to me to be able to support other individuals who were kind of out to do the same thing I was doing and have their side hustle or have themselves make themselves their own bosses. So that was always a priority, and I always worked with them to make sure pricing was fair. But yes, it was always a per unit pricing structure.
Well, it allowed you to still check the, made in the USA box, to still check the handmade box
Yep.
versus, yeah, we could
Yep.
probably go overseas and produce these at a lower cost, but is the quality going to suffer? Is, now all of a sudden I got to order a
But
1,000 units. So I got all this upfront capital tied up in inventory.
exactly. There is a perceived value in being able to have that made in the USA sort of stamp of approval on your product. And then there are so many hidden costs to producing overseas. The thing that I used to run into was timing issues. You can have your product mapped out for 6 months and they can get it on a boat in time. But if
Hmm.
you're if your container doesn't get inspected fully, or if it has to go through the full customs rundown, it's not budging, and no one has any control over that. No one can do anything about that for goodness knows how long, and it can add weeks and weeks and weeks of just waiting time on that international product.
What was going on in terms of the shipping and fulfillment? Like, were they all coming to your house, your garage, and then you're sending them out, or the seamstresses sending them out whenever an order came through? Hey, we got a large in, the Elsa model, or whatever. We got to send this one out.
When I first started, it was coming to me, and I had sort of stock sitting there available to ship, and I would just pull and pack and as needed. Then, as sort of like my personal circumstances changed and the volume grew a bit more, the warehouse, if you will, sort of migrated to my parents' house, and my mom became the default shipping and logistics manager, if you will. And
Yeah, shout out to mom.
I couldn't have had a successful business without their efforts and without their support. I'm with everything that's happened on the personal side of things in my life as well as the business. There would be no way for me to overcome a lot of like the logistics without mom and dad's support. So it's a family business. It's been a
Yes.
family run business. But yeah, so they started having sparkly tutus take over their house and shipping from there.
Okay. What did you ultimately transition into?
So we'll say the one of the things that like was a huge hurdle for me was I shouldn't say this part is a hurdle, but like I literally fell in love with a handsome officer, and my husband is still active duty in the army. And we were stationed in Germany for over 4 years. And I've been so lucky to have the support system of my parents who said, nope, this has already grown to bigger than you thought it would. We're going to keep it going. And they continued shipping from there. So with the time difference, I would wake up in the morning, send them any new orders that had come in, send them like the shipping batch from what would then be overnight for
Okay.
them. While I was very much doing the customer service end of things and the design and buying end of things from my computer in Germany.
Yeah, it's a location independent business, but somebody's got to touch the product and send it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and thankfully, they loved me enough to step up to the plate, I guess.
No, that makes sense. You mentioned doing the giveaways to grow the social media following, and it's
Mhm.
kind of it's a product that lends itself to social media in a way. People are going to be excited that they got this, or have you seen these? And there's some built-in word of mouth that can spread. But
Absolutely.
what else was going on to market the product?
Well, so I did lean into that word of mouth element, and then the emergence of influencers as being something that was a known marketing tool coming to the forefront. A few years into the brand, I created a team of ambassadors who were like very active in the Run Disney community and had larger platforms than I on their on their social media within their social media networks, and specifically were sort of Run Disney influencers, if you will.
Okay.
And they have always consistently been a fantastic group of girls. It's sort of like, I'll give you product if you put it out there and promote it and wear it for the races, and take your lovely photos with your gorgeous hair and your gorgeous makeup and style it up and have fun with it. And they did just that, and they kept it lighthearted and fun and made it a very sort of part of like your Run Disney costume experience being the butt bow and being a Dottie skirt. So
Yeah.
they were wonderful.
Were those um influencer relationships? Were those on an affiliate basis? Were those just out of the good of their hearts? Were they? How did you have it structured?
Every September, I would have an ambassador search and promote it and really have it be a chance for the community to get in touch with me, tell me your story. I want to hear it, and I tried to keep it a diverse enough group every year where half the group had big follow accounts and had a lot of likes and a lot of shares and everything. But then the other half of the group were perhaps also just trying to get off the ground as in their sort of influencer journey, but they had a very, very real, interesting story that I wanted to help them share.
Hold on, hold on. So at the beginning, you're doing the outreach and saying, "Hey, I've got these great skirts. Can I send you one?" And maybe maybe you promote it, maybe you don't. But over time, it becomes people are applying to
Yeah.
be Dottie ambassadors.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, I had wanted to establish this, supportive community, and we sort of organically became known as Team Buttbow.
Okay.
And, again, it was one of those things initially hey, would anybody be interested in being an ambassador? You'll get product and etc. and everything. And then within a year, it had become I hate to use the word competitive, but it had been hey, I'm interested in this. I want to do this. And I had to sort of find a way to have, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, a selection process, and put this group together. And luckily, it's always been a wonderful thing and has brought me much, much closer to a lot of the girls who were out there wearing the product, and brought some special people into my life. So
Okay.
and then it really truly did help with the outreach and everything, and get the word out there within this microcosm specifically.
Yeah, it became a point of pride rather than,
Yeah,
well, I hope to make my 20% if somebody buys one of these things.
exactly. Kept it product based, and luckily there was there was interest enough in that. So
No, that's really cool. That's cool to build that community
yeah.
and have people raising their hands and saying, "Yeah, I want," versus going out trying to beg people to promote your stuff. Was there ever a viral spike or a moment where you find yourself running out of inventory, or is because of the lean production, oh, we could ramp up if we needed to?
We had great and steady growth, even leading up to COVID. We were sort of growing by 30% year to year. But it was around that time when they did announce the first turn to the in-person races post COVID. And there was a sudden rush to the site, and everything was selling out all at once and everything. And I was getting, for the first time, a disappointed customer feedback of hey, I want this skirt, it's not there, when, or why can't I get it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in Germany going, oh my goodness. And so we did start sort of adapting to a bit of a pre-order model, to sort of figure out exactly what that demand was, order based on the photography and the sample, and it'll ship in 8 weeks. And then for this sort of tried and true, sort of consistent sellers, sort of your Princess base one, you sort of Fab Five base ones and everything like that, we did sort of stick to more of a stock program for them. But yeah, it was that first initial wave of demand was was sort of wait, how do I do this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So day to day, you're handling customer support, you're doing what you can on the marketing side, you're forwarding orders to mom and dad, and I imagine coming up with new designs.
Yes.
If like my initial thought is at what point have you just saturated the market? Anybody who is doing these races and wants one of these things is going to have it, or they're just decide that wasn't for them. But well, maybe we could sell multiple to the same customer if we just keep coming up with new styles for the next race and the next race.
Exactly. Luckily, Run Disney is on a very accelerated schedule. And so they start selling races and they start promoting the themes for races months and months and months in advance of the actual event now. So as soon as those events dropped, I would start on the designs and seeing what we could offer in like a new collection that was sort of hand in hand with those themes. And then that would then be like the next pre-order. And to speak to the repeat customers, the, I cannot tell you like the loyalty that we had. I have always been so lucky that and I think it speaks to a quality product and why it's worth sort of like the extra mile of like working with individuals and working with that handmade product. There's a young lady who I mentioned like I've become sort of like friends outside of the business with some of the customers. And she texted me the other day. She's like, I just want you to know. She's like, I think that I just ordered my 100th Dottie skirt.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, she's been a customer for years and years and years. And I was like, I don't think I have 100 Dottie skirts in my personal
Hmm.
collection because I don't know where I would put them
That
all.
is a super fan. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, it was amazing to see that it is a very, very loyal customer base. And I think that that's true of the sort of the Disney fans in general. It's a quality product. It's something that's ever evolving, ever changing. And the Run Disney like community is just that. Like they do a great job of it, putting an emphasis on it being come together and we'll all do this together. And I think that for a lot of people, and I'm thankful for this every day, but for a lot of people, the Dottie skirt sort of became synonymous with all of that and became like a part of their race event. And putting their outfit together and putting their look together and putting their costume together was all part of the fun. And so I think that that's where a lot of that loyalty has come from.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's 100 different orders. That's pretty cool to have that kind of fandom, that kind of loyalty.
Yeah.
You mentioned Etsy. What are some of the other tools and tech that were running the business?
So, when we did sort of explode in volume and everything, I did transition to Shopify, just because I had sort of streamlined how we were offering the skirts, as far as not as many customization options and things like that, to fit in with the increased demand. And I just wanted a bit more of like a sort of slick for lack of a better term, way of handling the back end of things. And Shopify does give you, I think, that many more options to sort of control like running reports and having the sort of snapshot for more factors of your business at your fingertips.
Was it
Um,
all run through Etsy prior to that? Or
it
were
was
they kind of running in tandem?
it was all through Etsy prior to that.
Oh, okay.
And then I did have a period of time where they were kind of running in tandem. But then as soon as I realized that we did have the sort of like the name clout, like sort of it was an established enough brand name that the website itself could just carry itself. I did transition everything to Shopify again, just to sort of keep everything as streamlined as possible for me. And of course, like it allows you to have a little bit more control and have more options over like building the website, which is
Yeah.
nice.
It's
So,
scary though to shut down the store or to put the store on vacation mode because it says like 3,500 sales and all this positive
yeah,
feedback. And it's
yeah.
like,
Well, and
are
that's
they
it.
really going to
Like
come over here?
the fact that it's still on vacation mode is very much like I eh, I was like I still am terrified of sort of like losing all of that data, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. You never know what is going to spring up, and you want to have.
Could you have it? Could you turn it back on just as like incremental? Like if people wanted to discover it through, sure, all of your marketing is going to point to the Shopify storefront, but I mean,
Well,
you don't own it anymore. It's not your problem, but
yeah, these days, no, I definitely couldn't these days, Nick. But like,
yeah.
but at a point in time, yes, and that's actually something that like my mom was always saying, like, "Oh, can't you just
Yeah,
keep
what if
it
people are looking
going?"
specifically on that store? I don't know.
I know, and I I hear and understand all of that. The I reached a tipping point, which I mean, which we can talk about more, but that like I did need to say, okay, like this is as much as I can handle.
Yeah.
And admit to myself that I was almost like getting in my own way. And say like try to streamline it and try to find that balance of what I was comfortable running, and what I could run, with everything going on around me, and still offer the customer service and the quality and everything that we'd become known for at that point.
Yeah.
And so I think one platform was more than enough.
Sure. Simplify. Simplify. I
Yeah.
like that call. Anything else aside from Shopify?
No, so we really truly just did Shopify and then social media, and I did hire a social media manager for a while who was fantastic, and she very much like sort of tied things together for me as far as like having the Facebook shop and everything. I am hopeless at Facebook. Like I am very much a millennial in the sense that like I used to share my photo albums on there and then it sort of stopped for me. So we would get like the odd order come through from Facebook. But again, like it was never like the big sort of
Yeah.
draw like conversion for me.
Got it. Well, sounds like things were really going well, and you had the systems in place, and you had this loyal customer base and this group of fans and ambassadors. And then you say, "Hey, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore." Or, somebody else could take this off my hands. That would be great. I'm going to walk. Talk to me about the transition from running the business to setting it up for a sale and then finding a buyer.
In the time that I started the business, I got married and married into the military lifestyle. So we're still in it very much like every couple of years where we're moving to comes up to question. Like,
Yeah.
we just don't know where we're going to be from time to time. And then we've been very, very lucky enough to we have 3 small children now. But within the span of a few months, I had all of the Dottie stuff going on. I had Arthur, my second little boy, and then we had a PCS back to the States. So we had an international move. He was literally 3 months old when we
Mhm.
did that move. And I could see where I was sort of cutting corners a little bit, like kind of going into survival mode where I was like having to choose between like the customer service, like my customers and my children, essentially. I wish I didn't have the imposter syndrome at the time to hold me back from like from establishing more help, because I think that I viewed that as like such a big commitment, and I wasn't ready to like take that on as well. um you know but then no one can prepare you for having that second child and what that juggle does to your life and how it takes things over and everything. It's a glorious mess. So it was a huge transition time, and it was the first time that I really thought, like, can I keep doing this? Like, can I keep this up? And what does the end game look like? I started kind of figuring out what that balance was. And I started not downscaling, but I was very much having to learn the word no in a lot of ways. Like, 'cause small business owners, we have to realize that we're not Amazon, we're not Target. We cannot be available 24/7 as much as we wish we could be. And as much as you hate to even have like the tiniest, teeniest, tiniest bit of disappointment in a customer's email or anything like that. And I had to figure out what that balance was. Like, this is what we're offering. And this is like the volume that we can do. And this is where we have to kind of cap this out.
'Cause it's doing hundreds of orders a month at this point. It's a significant operation, bigger than maybe you ever expected it could
Much
be.
I never in a million years dreamed that this would become, like, sort of the legitimate business that it became,
Yeah.
and, and by that point in time, like, I was drawing, like, a paycheck from it. It was my job,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
it had transitioned from no longer being the side hustle to being, like, my contribution to the family,
And
and,
I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, there's a certain level of identity tied up in that where,
huge, huge.
it's Samantha is synonymous with Dottie, and it's like it becomes a thing. Like, it would be hard to step away from.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like, and I took a great deal of pride in the fact that, like, it's sort of like, this is the house that Tutu's built sort of thing. But I did feel like I was tripping over my own feet and getting in my own way as far as what the business could then become. I could see it, right? Like, I could see what it could be. And I just did not have enough control over my time. Time was the biggest the biggest commodity and the most in demand thing. And to be perfectly honest, like, any of us who are parents, like, the cliches are very real. Like, time is fleeting. And when you have these little children, like, babies don't keep. And I'm very lucky to be in a position where I can be at home with the children. And I realized that, hey, like, that window of opportunity is getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah,
And
it seems those days seem really long in the when you're in it, but it is a very brief window.
exactly, all of a sudden you're planning for kindergarten, and he's going to big boy school. So yeah, and as far as the business goes, it was coming up on its 10-year anniversary this year. So I, again, like, very little expectations, started speaking to some brokers about and researching what a sale would look like, and sort of trying to get that idea of the valuation and everything.
Yeah.
Um it's very, very, very expensive and, very, time consuming to sell with a private broker. Of course, like, if you're talking about, like, a multi-million dollar sale, I would say, like, then that's when the private broker becomes worth it. That's when hiring your own accountant, hiring your own lawyer becomes worth it.
Okay.
But I knew that, like, I was, low six figures. And that was sort of like my bottom line, was like, I just wanted to, like, be in the six figures.
Okay. As
And
a point of pride, or just like, "Hey, this seems like a fair offer based on a multiple of
I think
historical earnings."
50-50, like, something that I learned along the way is, like, the valuation is based on, like, the true profit. Um, and it would be a really nice, for lack of a better term, like, a nice bow on it if we could sell in the 10th year, because then I feel like, from the point of pride position, that's like, okay, I have owned this business for 10 years. That's no
Yeah,
small
you
amount of
made it. 7
time.
out of 10 don't make it to year 5, whatever the statistics are. You're like, "Not only do we make it, but, now we found
Yeah.
a buyer to carry the torch."
We're at this nice, like, round number. So I had some friends who had sold a small business a couple of years ago, and they had, got in touch with Flippa, and, I they recommended I look into it and see if it would be a good option for me. And I just kinda had that, like, initial phone call with them already with, like, a valuation range in my head from doing my own research. And they were right, kind of bang slap in the middle of that. The fact that they're sort of full service in the sense that it's, like, all done for you, like, the legal contracts, anything like that, it's all just kind of done. You don't have to worry about having contracts drawn up yourself. You don't have to worry about, like, getting things, like, looked at yourself or anything. It's all done.
Yeah, well, and
And
they promote the sale to, a pretty big network of buyers at this point.
exactly,
Flip has been around
exactly.
forever versus you trying to do manual outreach to other Disney sellers, other members
Where
of
would
your
I
ambassador
begin?
team, maybe? Like, I don't know who would be a target buyer for something like this.
Mm,
Somebody with some e-com experience and who also loves Disney and tack it on to
exactly.
your portfolio.
The young lady who became my broker, Maliha, she, um, I remember in like one of our initial conversations, she said to me, "You're not going to get hundreds and hundreds of buyers because it's such a niche business." She's like, "But that's okay because you just need that one
Yeah, it
buyer."
only takes one.
Yeah. She's like, and she's like, "That's what we're gonna go after, is we're gonna go after that person who understands it, who really, like, knows and gets what this business is." She said, "Because they're out there," you know? She was like, I'm gonna find them." And sure enough, she did, and, the young lady, who owns the business now, she very organically, like, she is a Run Disney runner, she is a Disney fan, and, she just so happens to, you know, whereas I'm sort of in the early childhood stages of having my children, she's about to become an empty nester within the next couple of
Okay.
years. So she was looking for, like, her project that,
Sure, in the next chapter.
yeah, exactly, what's gonna be hers, and, from those initial conversations, it just kind of felt like we understood each other, and she, like, kinda got the vision, and, yeah, and then Flippa kinda took care of the rest and the awkward bit, if you will.
Was it nerve-wracking putting it up for sale? And because you kinda have to be you know, open the kimono to, in a sense, on like, here's what the business is making, here's our
Yeah.
order volume, here's where the customers are coming from. And part of it might be like, well, shoot, somebody could rip this off. Never mind, they're gonna have to replicate 10 years worth of work to get to this point. But like that's in the back of my mind. And then just, you know, it's kind of vulnerable in a way to like be
It
really,
really
really
is.
transparent.
Flipper is very good about, like, they won't release any, sales figures or numbers until someone signs an NDA to,
Okay.
like, kind of, like, to sort of, like, look into the business, and they have sort of pre-approved buyers in that sense and everything, who their funds are already there. They take out all of that sort of, like, legwork, and so we did have, you know, sort of consistent interest from, like, venture capitalists and everything, but of course, it's a turnkey business only in the sense that it's established. It's not a turnkey business in the sense that you can be an absentee owner without taking the extra steps of like building a team who's going to run it on the ground for you.
Yeah.
And so that was where, you know, like a couple of months into the listing being up there, I was like, oh, am I kind of like barking up the wrong tree here? Like, and that's where like Malia was like, no, like stay steadfast because
That
we're
was
just
that was the
going.
next question. Well, how long did it take? And it sounds like a couple months
I'm
at
ju
least.
The listing went live on November 2nd, and then the ink was dry and, everything had been handed over, I think by April 23rd was the big date.
Okay.
So it took, let's see, I think that it was early February when, the young lady who ultimately became the buyer initially reached out and got in touch with us, and so it took a couple of months for us to get everything, like, sorted, and I
Yeah.
mean, like, she already physically had the inventory, like, we were signing the very, very, very final documents and handing over, like, the very, very last bits of IP and stuff, like, on April 23rd, so it was
Yeah,
all.
transfer the, Instagram account, whatever
Yeah,
else needs to
exactly, all the
happen.
passwords, it's yours. Um,
Did
so
you do
yeah, it was.
anything to celebrate when that final wire hit?
Oh, a very expensive bottle of champagne. It
Nice.
was no, we definitely have, a celebration trip planned, actually for, like, next summer, but, army life, you can't really, like, plan these things too far or too soon in advance. We've definitely, like, had some special meals and stuff, but I'm very much looking forward to being on a beach with my husband and
Mhm.
truly celebrating.
Yeah, it's really rewarding to
Yeah.
have built something and grown it and sustained it, and then to be able to remove yourself from the operation and have somebody take the reins
Yeah.
and get paid for that. And that's a really cool kind of full circle side hustle entrepreneurial moment. So
Well, exactly, and
congratulations on that.
thank you. It was very rewarding to be able to do that for my family and to be able to, you know, like, to give us options for the future and everything is again like a very rewarding feeling.
Yeah. What are you working on these days? You got another project you're cooking up, or just I got
So
these young kids at home? I'm gonna be a
oh,
mom.
bit of both. So I had promised myself that, like a lot of the catalyst for the sale was allowing myself the luxury of time with the children. So I have promised myself, promised my husband that I will do that and I will be a stay-at-home mom at least a year or so. That doesn't mean there's not things cooking back
Hmm.
here. Because I think that once you sort of like get the bug for being your own boss and everything and having your own business, it's hard to get away from that. And I think that at heart I am a shop girl. I love retail, I love pretty things, like and I love the challenge of like sort of building a business around that. So I'm sure that whatever is around the corner and down the road will sort of include that, revolve around that.
Well, I'm excited for whatever that project turns out to be. I hope you'll keep us posted and let us know.
Thank
Um, DottieForRunning.com is the skirt site. If you are in this Disney community and don't already have one of these in your life, go pick one up. Help out the new owner over there.
you.
Um, Samantha, this has been really, really fun. Let's wrap this up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation.
Just do it. It doesn't matter like how big or small or what limitations you think you have, or if it's going to be just like a small investment. Don't be put off by all of like the bigness of things that are out there and like the flash of things and like launch parties and everything like that. Do your thing, keep your focus and believe in yourself and just do it.
Yes, start small, start quietly if you want to,
Yeah,
but you got to start. So appreciate
exactly.
that. A couple notes from me before we wrap. Number one is I'm looking at the theme of looking for these like intersections and overlaps between different areas of your life. If you're like looking for that side hustle idea where it was running plus Disney plus fashion in this case, and bonus points if one of those is something where there's a built-in interest or demand, in this case Disney and the Run Disney events, where it's like you can kind of draft off of that popularity or piggyback on that popularity and that demand that already exists. I think that's a really powerful business building tactic.
Mhm.
And the second thing was to really become a part of this community. Remember going back to the very first days where I made this for myself and people
Yes.
were asking me at the event, where did you get that? It's like
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding. That's a good sign. So being part of that community and then fostering that community, we talked about the ambassador program, but not so much where you're the only ambassador. That makes it
Yeah.
hard too to have this exit moment to sell down the road. It's like, I'm here, I'm part of it, I'm the voice, I'm the face, but it doesn't have to be me all the time. And so there's a kind of
Yeah.
a fine line to walk there. So I thought this was a really cool episode. We've got links to all the resources in the show notes. If you're new to the show, welcome. We've got 700 killer episodes just like this one to binge on. But if you're a little more pressed for time, I understand that as well. What you can do is grab yourself a personalized playlist at hustle.show. All you have to do is answer a few short multiple choice questions about your side hustle goals, interests, what do you like, what do you don't like, and it'll spit back out 8 to 10 of our greatest hits episodes based on your answers that you can go add to your playlist. You can go learn what works. That is hustle.show for that personalized playlist quiz. Big thanks to Samantha for sharing her insight. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this content free for everyone. SideHustleNation.com/deals is where to go to find all the latest offers from our sponsors in one place. That is it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're finding value in the show, the greatest compliment is to share it with a friend. So fire off that text message to that Disney fan in your life, that professional 5Ker in your life, and say, hey, check this out. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. And I'll catch you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.